Imagine being able to master a new skill, language, or even memorize entire books within just 48 hours. Sounds impossible, right? Well, Tansel Ali's How to Learn Anything in 48 Hours is here to show you otherwise. Ali starts by dismantling a common myth. Learning is hard and takes forever. In reality, it's not about how much time you spend, but how effectively you use it. He shares his own journey, how he memorized 2 entire Yellow Pages phone books in less than a month. Crazy, huh? But it's proof that with the right techniques, our brains are capable of incredible things. The book isn't just about memory tricks, it's about breaking down learning into a system that works for anyone. Ali explains that the traditional ways of studying, like cramming and rote repetition, are outdated. Instead, he invites us to make learning fun and engaging by tapping into creativity, imagination, and focus. Ali also reassures us, you don't need to be a genius to achieve remarkable results. All it takes is curiosity and a willingness to try new approaches. This book is a guide for anyone who's ready to challenge their limits and see just how far their brain can take them. Chapter 1. How your brain learns. Have you ever tried to learn something new, only to feel like your brain was working against you? Maybe it's cramming for an exam, trying to master a new skill, or even just memorizing someone's name. Tansel Ali kicks off the book by helping us understand what's really going on in our heads, and why most of us approach learning all wrong. Ali explains that your brain isn't designed for boring, repetitive tasks. Traditional learning methods like cramming and rote memorization don't play to your brain's strengths. Instead, your brain thrives on creativity, emotions, and visuals. Think about it. When was the last time you remembered a boring list of facts? Probably never. But that funny story your friend told last week? Still fresh in your mind. That's because our brains are wired to prioritize things that are vivid, unusual, or meaningful. To illustrate this, Ali shares a simple but powerful technique: visualization. Let's say you're trying to remember the word elephant. Most people would repeat it over and over, hoping it sticks. But instead, imagine this: a giant, bright pink elephant stomping through your living room. It's wearing sunglasses, sipping a milkshake, and tapping its foot to music. Ridiculous, right? But also unforgettable. That's the power of visualization. It takes boring information and turns it into something your brain can't ignore. Ali doesn't stop there. He introduces another key technique: association. This is where you connect new information to something you already know. For example, if you're learning the French word for apple, palme, you could imagine holding an apple in your palm. The stronger the connection, the easier it is to remember. This is why your brain loves patterns. It's constantly looking for links between things, and when it finds them, it locks them in. But Ali also emphasizes something important. Learning isn't just about tricks. It's about mindset. One of the biggest obstacles to effective learning is the belief that some people are naturally smart and others aren't. Ali completely dismantles this myth. He explains that your brain is like a muscle. It gets stronger the more you use it. The only difference between a memory champion and an average person is practice. He shares a story about how he struggled with learning as a kid. Ali wasn't always a memory expert. In fact, he used to forget things all the time. But once he discovered these techniques and started applying them, everything changed. He went from being the guy who couldn't remember names to memorizing entire phone books. If he could do it, anyone can. Ali also touches on why most of us struggle with focus. He explains that distractions are your brain's worst enemy. If you're trying to learn while checking your phone, watching TV, or worrying about something else, you're setting yourself up for failure. To truly learn, you need to give your brain the space to focus. Ali suggests creating a distraction-free zone when studying or practicing something new. Turn off notifications, clear your desk, and dedicate a specific time to learning. Another fascinating point Ollie makes is about emotion. Your brain is far more likely to remember things that trigger a strong feeling, whether it's excitement, fear, or even humor. For example, you're more likely to remember a shocking plot twist in a movie than a dull scene with no emotion. Ollie encourages readers to inject emotion into their learning process. If you're trying to memorize a list, turn it into a funny or dramatic story. If you're learning a new skill, connect it to something you're passionate about. By the end of this chapter, Ollie leaves us with a simple yet powerful message. Learning doesn't have to be hard. When you tap into your brain's natural strengths, visualization, association, and emotion, it becomes not only easier, but also enjoyable. He challenges readers to try one of his techniques today, starting small and building from there. Key takeaways from Chapter 1. Your brain loves visuals, patterns, and emotions. Use them to your advantage. Turn boring information into vivid stories or images to make it stick. Connect new ideas to things you already know through association. Create a focused, distraction-free environment to maximize learning. Anyone can learn faster and better. It's just a matter of practice and mindset. Ollie ends the chapter with an empowering thought. The only thing standing between you and mastering any skill is your approach. Shift the way you think about learning, and the possibilities are endless. Chapter 2. Breaking down the barriers to learning. Do you ever feel like you're just not cut out to learn certain things? Maybe you've told yourself, I'm bad at math, or languages aren't my thing. In Chapter 2, Tansel Ollie dives into the mental barriers that hold us back and shows how to overcome them. Ollie starts by addressing one of the biggest myths about learning, the idea that intelligence is fixed. He explains that this mindset creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you're bad at something, you'll avoid practicing it, which only reinforces the belief. On the flip side, a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can improve with effort, can completely transform how you approach challenges. He shares a story from his own life. As a kid, Ollie struggled in school and felt like he wasn't smart enough to succeed. But everything changed when he discovered memory techniques. By learning how to make information fun and engaging, he realized it wasn't his intelligence that was the problem. It was the way he was learning. Ollie also explains how fear plays a major role in blocking progress. Fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, fear of wasting time, all of these can stop you from even trying. But here's the thing, failure is a natural part of learning. Ollie encourages readers to embrace mistakes as stepping stones to improvement. Every time you mess up, you're one step closer to mastering the skill. To illustrate this, he shares a technique called progressive overload. This concept, borrowed from fitness, involves gradually increasing the difficulty of what you're learning. For example, if you're trying to memorize a speech, start with one paragraph, then two, then the entire speech. By taking small, manageable steps, you build confidence and momentum. Ollie also introduces the idea of chunking. Our brains can only hold so much information at once, so breaking it into smaller chunks makes it easier to digest. For example, instead of memorizing a 10-digit phone number as one long string, you can group it into 3 smaller sections. This technique works for anything from studying for exams to learning a new instrument. Another barrier Ollie addresses is distraction. He explains that our modern world is filled with things competing for our attention: social media, notifications, endless to-do lists. To counter this, he recommends setting up a learning ritual. This means creating a dedicated time and space for learning every day. By turning it into a habit, you eliminate decision fatigue and make it easier to stay consistent. Ollie also touches on the importance of rewards. Learning doesn't have to feel like a grind. By celebrating small wins, Whether it's mastering a new phrase in a language or completing a practice session, you create positive reinforcement that keeps you motivated. At the end of the chapter, Ollie leaves us with a powerful reminder. The biggest barriers to learning are the ones you create in your own mind. Once you break those down, nothing is out of reach. Key takeaways from Chapter 2. Intelligence isn't fixed. Anyone can improve with effort and the right techniques. Fear of failure is normal, but it shouldn't stop you from trying. Use progressive overload to tackle challenges one step at a time. Break information into chunks to make it easier to remember. Create a distraction-free learning environment and build consistent habits. Chapter 3. The Power of Memory Techniques. If I asked you to memorize a list of 20 random words in under 5 minutes, would you believe it's possible? In Chapter 3, Tansel Ollie reveals that not only is it possible, but it's also easier than you think when you tap into the power of memory techniques. Ollie begins by explaining that memory is not about brute force, it's about creativity. The key to remembering anything, from a shopping list to a complex theory, is turning it into a vivid, unforgettable image. Why? Because your brain is wired to remember pictures better than words. He introduces one of the most famous techniques, the memory palace. This method, also called the method of loci, has been used for centuries by memory champions and ancient orators. Here's how it works. 1. Imagine a familiar place, like your house or a favorite park. 2. Mentally place the information you want to remember in specific locations within that space. 3. When you need to recall the information, simply walk through your mental palace and pick up the details. For example, if you're trying to memorize a grocery list, picture a loaf of bread sitting on your couch, a carton of milk spilling on the carpet, and bananas hanging from a lamp. The sillier and more exaggerated the images, the better they'll stick. Ollie explains that this technique works because it taps into your brain's natural ability to navigate and visualize spaces. By linking abstract information to concrete images, you make it easier to retrieve later. Next, Ollie introduces the PEG system, another powerful tool for remembering lists and sequences. This method involves creating a mental hook for each number from 1 to 10. For example, 1 is a pen, 2 is a swan, 3 is a tree. Once you've assigned each number a peg, you can attach the items you want to remember to those pegs. If your first item is apple, you might imagine a pen stabbing into an apple. For the second item, shirt, you could picture a swan wearing a shirt. This turns abstract concepts into vivid, memorable visuals. Ollie doesn't just stop at the techniques, he emphasizes the importance of practice. He shares his own experience of training for memory competitions, where he started small and gradually built up his skills. He explains that it's not about having a perfect memory, it's about consistently applying these methods until they become second nature. He also talks about how these techniques can transform your everyday life. Imagine being able to remember names at a networking event, recall key points from a book, or deliver a speech without notes. Ollie argues that memory isn't just a party trick, it's a skill that can boost your confidence, productivity, and even your relationships. One of the most inspiring parts of this chapter is Ollie's message that anyone can master these techniques. You don't need to be naturally gifted or have a photographic memory. All it takes is a willingness to experiment and a bit of imagination. Key takeaways from Chapter 3. Memory is about creativity, not brute force. The memory palace is a powerful way to store and retrieve information. The PEG system makes it easy to remember lists and sequences. Practice is key. Start small and build your memory muscles over time. Memory techniques can improve every area of your life, from work to personal growth. Ollie closes the chapter with this thought. Your memory is a tool. It's up to you to sharpen it and use it to its full potential. Chapter 4. Turning information into stories. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to remember the plot of a movie or a story someone told you, but you struggle to recall facts or figures? That's because stories are how our brains naturally process and store information. In Chapter 4, Tansel Ollie shows how transforming raw information into narratives can supercharge your learning. Ollie starts by explaining that stories work because they tap into our emotions, imagination, and sense of connection. When you hear a good story, your brain lights up. It's not just processing words. It's creating images, feeling emotions, and predicting outcomes. Ollie emphasizes that when you turn what you want to learn into a story, it becomes much easier to remember and retrieve. For example, let's say you're trying to memorize a list of random words: dog, pizza, balloon, and mountain. Instead of repeating them over and over, Ollie suggests creating a vivid story. A dog is walking down the street when it spots a giant pizza floating in the air. Suddenly, a balloon pops out of the pizza and carries it up to a mountain peak. This silly, exaggerated story sticks because it's engaging and easy for your brain to visualize. Ollie highlights that the crazier and more unexpected your story, the better it will work. Why? Because your brain is wired to pay attention to things that stand out. Mundane details get forgotten, but unusual ones leave an impression. He also explains how stories can be used for more complex information, like historical events or scientific concepts. For instance, if you're learning about the solar system, imagine the planets as characters in a quirky family. The Sun could be the overbearing parent, Mercury the speedy sibling, and Jupiter the jolly uncle. By giving the information personality and life, you make it easier to recall. Ollie shares a personal story about how he used this technique during his memory championship training. To memorize hundreds of playing cards, he assigned each card a character and wove them into elaborate stories. What might seem impossible, like remembering the order of an entire deck, became manageable and even fun. But what if you're not naturally creative? Ollie reassures readers that storytelling is a skill you can develop. He suggests starting small. 1. Take a simple list or set of facts. 2. Create a short, silly story around them. 3. Practice recalling the information using the story. Over time, your imagination will get stronger, and you'll find it easier to come up with creative narratives. Ollie also touches on the practical applications of this technique. Imagine using storytelling to deliver a presentation at work. Instead of rattling off data, you could frame your key points within a story that grabs your audience's attention. Or think about studying for an exam. Turning dry textbook material into a memorable narrative could make revision less daunting. By the end of the chapter, Ollie leaves us with a powerful idea. Stories are everywhere. Whether it's a conversation, a speech, or something you're learning for yourself, weaving information into a narrative can transform the way you think and communicate. Key takeaways from Chapter 4. Stories make information stick by engaging your brain's natural processes. The sillier and more exaggerated the story, the better it works. Use storytelling for simple lists, complex ideas, or anything in between. Practice building stories to strengthen your creativity and memory skills. Stories aren't just for fun, they're a tool for learning and communication. Ollie wraps up by saying, when you tell a story, you don't just remember, you connect, inspire, and bring ideas to life. Chapter 5. Using focus to accelerate learning. Have you ever sat down to learn something, only to get distracted 5 minutes later? Maybe your phone buzzed, a random thought popped into your head, or you just couldn't concentrate. In Chapter 5, Tansel Ollie dives into the importance of focus and how mastering it can supercharge your ability to learn anything in record time. Ollie starts by explaining that focus isn't just about blocking out distractions, it's about directing your mental energy toward one thing at a time. He compares focus to a flashlight. If you spread the beam too wide, it loses intensity. But when you narrow it down, it becomes powerful enough to cut through the dark. One of the biggest obstacles to focus, according to Ali, is multitasking. He emphasizes that multitasking is a myth. Your brain isn't designed to handle multiple complex tasks at once. It simply switches back and forth between them, wasting time and energy in the process. For example, trying to study while scrolling social media might feel productive, but in reality, you're splitting your attention and slowing yourself down. To combat this, Ali suggests creating a focused learning environment. This means eliminating anything that could pull your attention away. He shares a personal example. When he was training for memory championships, he would set aside dedicated blocks of time in a quiet space with no distractions. His phone was off, his desk was clear, and his mind was fully present. But focus isn't just about your environment, it's also about your mindset. Ali introduces the concept of intentional focus, where you approach each learning session with a clear goal. Instead of vaguely saying, "I'm going to study," decide exactly what you want to achieve, like memorizing 20 vocabulary words or solving 10 math problems. This clarity helps your brain stay on track. Ali also talks about the role of breaks in maintaining focus. While it might seem counterintuitive, stepping away from your work every so often can actually improve your concentration. He recommends the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and repeat. These short, focused bursts of effort prevent mental fatigue and keep your brain sharp. Another key point Ali makes is about flow state, a mental state where you're fully immersed in what you're doing. You've probably experienced this while playing a game, doing a hobby, or even working on a project you enjoy. Time flies, and everything feels effortless. Ali explains that achieving flow during learning requires a balance between challenge and skill. If something is too easy, you'll get bored. If it's too hard, you'll feel overwhelmed. The sweet spot is where focus thrives. To help readers find their flow, Ali suggests breaking tasks into manageable steps and gradually increasing the difficulty. For example, if you're learning to play the piano, start with simple melodies before tackling complex pieces. This keeps you engaged without feeling frustrated. Ali also highlights the importance of mindfulness in staying focused. He explains that our brains are constantly bombarded with thoughts, many of which have nothing to do with the task at hand. Practicing mindfulness, whether through meditation, deep breathing, or simply observing your thoughts, can train your mind to let go of distractions and stay present. By the end of the chapter, Ali encourages readers to think of focus as a skill that can be developed, not something you're born with. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. Key takeaways from Chapter 5. Multitasking isn't productive. Focus on one thing at a time. Eliminate distractions by creating a dedicated learning environment. Set clear goals for each learning session to stay on track. Use the Pomodoro technique to work in short, focused bursts. Find your flow by balancing challenge and skill, and take breaks to recharge. Practice mindfulness to train your brain to let go of distractions. Ali wraps up the chapter with this advice. When you control your focus, you control your ability to learn. Make it your superpower. Chapter 6. The role of motivation in learning. Learning something new always starts with motivation. But let's be real, motivation isn't always easy to maintain. In Chapter 6, Tansel Ali dives deep into what keeps us motivated and how to reignite that spark when it starts to fade. Ali begins by breaking down a common misconception, that motivation is something you either have or don't have. He explains that motivation is like a muscle. It can be built, strengthened, and maintained with the right strategies. It's not about waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about creating the conditions that fuel your desire to learn. One of the first things Ali emphasizes is the importance of having a clear why. Why are you learning this skill? Why does it matter to you? For example, if you're trying to learn a language, your why might be to travel more confidently or connect with new people. If you don't have a strong reason behind your efforts, it's easy to lose focus when things get tough. Ali shares a story from his own journey as a memory champion. There were days when he didn't feel like practicing, but his motivation came from knowing that mastering these techniques would change his life. Whether it's improving your career, relationships, or personal growth, having a meaningful goal makes the hard work feel worth it. He also talks about the role of small wins in staying motivated. When you achieve even a tiny milestone like learning 5 new words or solving one challenging problem, it gives you a sense of progress. This momentum builds over time, making it easier to stay committed. Ali suggests celebrating these small victories, whether it's a quick break, a treat, or just taking a moment to reflect on how far you've come. Another key factor Ali highlights is visualizing success. He explains that your brain responds strongly to imagery, so imagining yourself succeeding can make the process feel more real and achievable. For example, if you're preparing for a speech, picture yourself standing confidently in front of an audience, delivering your points flawlessly. This mental rehearsal not only boosts your confidence, but also keeps you motivated to practice. Ali also addresses the common challenge of losing motivation midway through a learning journey. He says it's completely normal to hit a plateau where progress feels slow and frustration creeps in. The key is to push through these moments by reconnecting with your why and switching up your approach. If one method isn't working, try another, whether it's using different tools, seeking feedback, or changing your environment. An interesting point Ali makes is the connection between motivation and accountability. When you share your goals with someone, whether it's a friend, mentor, or online community, you're more likely to follow through. The fear of letting someone down or being seen as inconsistent can be a powerful motivator. Ali wraps up the chapter by emphasizing the role of discipline in sustaining motivation. He reminds readers that motivation alone won't get you to the finish line. There will be days when you don't feel like learning, and that's where discipline comes in. By building consistent habits, like setting aside a specific time each day to learn, you create a routine that keeps you moving forward, even when motivation dips. Key takeaways from Chapter 6. Motivation is built, not something you're born with. Identify your why to stay connected to your goals. Celebrate small wins to create a sense of progress. Visualize success to keep the process exciting and achievable. Push through plateaus by staying flexible and trying new methods. Use accountability to stay on track and create discipline to keep going. Ali ends the chapter with this thought. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. Together, they make anything possible. Chapter 7. The fastest ways to absorb information. Have you ever wished you could just download knowledge into your brain like in the Matrix? While we're not quite there yet, Tansel Ali explains in Chapter 7 that there are powerful techniques to absorb information faster and retain it longer. The key? Stop relying on outdated study methods and start using strategies that align with how your brain actually works. Ali begins by addressing a common mistake: passive learning. Most people try to learn by reading and rereading, highlighting, or listening to something over and over. But studies show that passive learning is one of the least effective ways to retain information. Your brain isn't built to just absorb words. It needs engagement, interaction, and stimulation. So, how do you make learning faster and more effective? Ali introduces active learning techniques, starting with one of the most powerful, the Feynman technique. Named after physicist Richard Feynman, this method is simple but incredibly effective. 1. Choose a concept you want to learn. 2. Try explaining it in your own words, as if teaching it to a 5-year-old. 3. Identify gaps in your understanding and go back to fill them in. 4. Repeat the process until you can explain it clearly and simply. Why does this work? Because teaching forces you to understand. If you can't break a concept down into simple terms, you probably don't fully grasp it. Ali suggests using this technique whether you're learning a language, studying for an exam, or mastering a new skill. Next, he introduces the 80-20 rule. This principle states that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. Applied to learning, this means you don't need to study everything, you just need to focus on the most important 20%. For example, if you're learning a new language, focus on the most commonly used words and phrases first. If you're studying for a test, identify the key concepts that will give you the biggest advantage. If you're learning an instrument, practice the fundamental techniques that apply to multiple songs. Ali warns against the trap of fake productivity, spending hours going over unnecessary details instead of focusing on what really matters. He encourages readers to ask, what's the fastest way to get to 80% competence in this skill? Then build from there. Another strategy Ali highlights is spaced repetition. Instead of cramming, which leads to quick forgetting, spaced repetition involves reviewing information at increasing intervals. For example, after 1 day, then 3 days, then a week, and so on. This method strengthens memory by forcing your brain to actively retrieve information instead of just recognizing it. Ali also introduces chunking, which helps organize information into meaningful groups. Think of how phone numbers are broken into smaller sections. It's much easier to remember 123-456-789 than 123-456-789. This method works for anything. Breaking long speeches into sections. Grouping vocabulary words by category. Organizing key points from a book into smaller ideas. One of the most interesting techniques Ali discusses is speed reading. He explains that most people read slowly because they subvocalize. This slows down comprehension. Speed readers train themselves to recognize words as visual patterns rather than hearing them internally. Ali suggests practicing with your finger or a pen under the words, moving slightly faster than your normal reading pace to push your eyes forward. Finally, Ali stresses that application beats memorization. The fastest learners don't just absorb knowledge, they use it. If you're learning a language, speak it daily instead of just studying grammar rules. If you're learning a skill, practice it in real-life situations instead of just watching tutorials. By the end of the chapter, Ali encourages readers to experiment with these techniques and see what works best for them. Learning isn't one size fits all, but once you find the right approach, you can absorb information at lightning speed. Key takeaways from Chapter 7. Passive learning is ineffective. Use active learning. The Feynman technique helps simplify complex ideas by explaining them in simple terms. The 80-20 rule helps focus on what's most important. Spaced repetition strengthens memory over time. Chunking makes large amounts of information easier to digest. Speed reading can help process information faster. The best way to learn is through application, not just memorization. Ali wraps up the chapter with this advice. Knowledge is useless if you don't apply it. Learn smart, use what you learn, and watch how fast you grow. Chapter 8. Mastering the art of retention. Learning something fast is great, but what's the point if you forget it just as quickly? In Chapter 8, Tansel Ali shifts the focus to retention, how to make sure information sticks in your brain for the long haul. Ali starts by explaining that forgetting isn't a flaw, it's actually how your brain stays efficient. Your brain filters out unimportant details to avoid information overload. But if something is important, you need to convince your brain to keep it. The key? Repetition, connection, and real-world use. He introduces a game-changing concept, the forgetting curve. Developed by psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus, this curve shows that without reinforcement, we forget up to 80% of new information within 24 hours. That means if you read a book today and do nothing to retain it, you'll barely remember anything tomorrow. So, how do you fight this? Spaced repetition. Instead of reviewing something once and hoping it sticks, you should revisit the information at strategic intervals. Right after learning it. Again after a few hours. The next day. A week later. A month later. Each time you review, your memory gets stronger. Ali explains that this method is why language learning apps like Duolingo are so effective. They bring words back at just the right moment before you forget them. But repetition alone isn't enough. Ali stresses the importance of emotional connection. Your brain prioritizes memories tied to emotions, which is why you never forget the lyrics to songs you loved as a kid. He suggests linking new information to strong emotions, like excitement, humor, or even surprise. For example, if you're trying to remember a historical date, don't just memorize numbers. Imagine yourself witnessing the event, feeling the heat of battle or the excitement of discovery. The more senses and emotions you engage, the more unforgettable it becomes. Ali also discusses context-dependent memory, the idea that where and how you learn something affects how well you recall it. If you study in the same environment where you'll need the information, like reviewing notes in the exam room before a test, your recall will be stronger. Next, he talks about mental associations. Your brain loves patterns, so linking new knowledge to something familiar can make it easier to remember. This is why acronyms and mnemonic devices work so well. For example, if you're trying to remember the order of the planets, you could use, "My very educated mother just served us nachos." Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Ali explains that mnemonics work because they simplify complex information into something structured and memorable. Another powerful technique he introduces is the story method. Instead of memorizing dry facts, weave them into a narrative. He shares how memory champions remember long sequences of numbers by turning them into mini-stories, like picturing 1984 as George Orwell writing a book in a futuristic city. Ali also encourages using handwriting over typing for note-taking. Studies show that writing things by hand improves retention because it forces you to engage with the material more deeply. Instead of passively copying notes, you should summarize in your own words. But ultimately, the best way to lock in knowledge is to use it. Teaching someone else, discussing what you've learned, or applying it in real life reinforces the memory and makes it part of your long-term knowledge. Key takeaways from Chapter 8. Your brain forgets most new information unless you actively work to retain it. Spaced repetition is the best way to strengthen memory over time. Emotional connection makes facts more memorable. Studying in the same environment where you'll need the knowledge improves recall. Mnemonics and acronyms simplify complex information. Writing by hand boosts memory more than typing. Using knowledge through teaching, discussion, or real-world practice makes it stick. Ali wraps up with this reminder. Memory isn't about cramming, it's about smart reinforcement. Keep what matters and let the rest go. Chapter 9. Learning faster with mind maps. Ever feel like your notes are a disorganized mess? You write down everything you can, but when you go back to study, it's just a wall of text? In Chapter 9, Tansel Ali introduces one of the most powerful tools for visual learning, mind maps, and explains how they can help you absorb and recall information much faster. Ali starts by pointing out a problem. Traditional note-taking is linear. It forces you to write in straight lines, which doesn't match how your brain naturally works. Your brain doesn't think in paragraphs. It thinks in connections, images, and associations. Mind maps take advantage of this, making learning faster, easier, and more fun. What is a mind map? A mind map is a visual diagram that organizes information in a way that mirrors how your brain processes it. Instead of writing in a boring list, 1. Start with a central idea in the middle of a blank page. 2. Branch out into key topics. 3. Create sub-branches for details under each topic. 4. Use colors, images, and keywords to make it memorable. Imagine trying to study for a biology exam. Instead of writing a long paragraph about the human body, you could create a mind map with human body in the center. Then branch out into categories like circulatory system, nervous system, and respiratory system. Each of those could have subbranches with details about organs, functions, and key facts. Ollie explains that mind maps work because they engage both sides of your brain, the left side, which loves structure and logic, and the right side, which thrives on creativity and visuals. This combination makes information stick better and faster. How to create an effective mind map. Ollie breaks it down into a few simple steps. Step 1. Start with a blank page. Step 2. Write your main topic in the center and draw a circle around it. Step 3. Create major branches for key themes. Step 4. Add subbranches with supporting details. Step 5. Use images, symbols, and colors to make it engaging. Why mind maps work so well? 1. They help you see the bigger picture. Instead of drowning in details, you can visualize the connections between concepts. 2. They make studying active, not passive. Drawing, writing, and organizing the information yourself strengthens memory. 3. They make reviewing easier. Instead of reading long notes, you can scan a single map and instantly recall key points. 4. They boost creativity. Because you're using colors and visuals, your brain stays engaged. Ollie shares how he personally used mind maps to memorize entire speeches without notes. Instead of writing out everything word for word, he mapped out key themes and points, so he only needed a quick glance to recall his entire talk. Mind maps for everyday learning. Mind maps aren't just for students. Ollie explains that you can use them to brainstorm ideas for work projects, plan books, presentations, or reports, organize your goals and priorities, prepare for meetings or interviews. He even suggests using them for language learning. Instead of memorizing lists of vocabulary, create a mind map for each topic and build branches for different words and phrases. How to make mind maps even more powerful. Ollie suggests these pro tips to take your mind mapping to the next level. Use bold colors to separate different categories. Draw simple sketches instead of just using words. Keep it simple. Stick to keywords. Don't write full sentences. Review your mind maps regularly to reinforce memory. Key takeaways from Chapter 9. Traditional notes are too linear. Mind maps mirror how your brain actually works. Mind maps engage both logic and creativity, helping you learn faster. They help you visualize connections, making information easier to remember. They can be used for studying, brainstorming, planning, and problem solving. Adding colors, images, and keywords makes them more powerful. Ollie wraps up the chapter with this advice. Your brain loves structure and creativity. Mind maps give you both. If you're not using them, you're missing out on one of the fastest ways to learn anything. Chapter 10. The Science of Sleep and Learning. Most people think learning happens while you're awake, but Tansel Ollie reveals something surprising in Chapter 10. Your brain actually processes and strengthens what you learn while you sleep. That's right, getting good sleep is just as important as studying or practicing if you want to master new skills quickly. Ollie starts by explaining that when you sleep, your brain organizes and reinforces new information, transferring it from short-term memory to long-term storage. This process, called memory consolidation, is why pulling all-nighters actually hurts your ability to learn, rather than helping. Why sleep is crucial for learning. Ollie shares research showing that deep sleep helps your brain replay what you learned. For example, if you study a language during the day, your brain reactivates those lessons at night, strengthening your ability to recall them later. If you skip sleep, your brain skips this process, making it harder to retain information. He introduces the two main sleep phases that affect learning. 1. Slow-wave sleep. This happens in the early part of the night and helps store factual information, like vocabulary, dates, and concepts. 2. REM sleep. This occurs later in the night and helps process creativity, problem-solving, and emotional learning. If you don't get enough sleep, or if you wake up too early, you miss out on REM sleep, which is crucial for mastering new skills. How to use sleep to learn faster. Ollie suggests some science-backed ways to boost learning while you sleep. 1. Learn something right before bed. Studies show that reviewing material at night helps your brain lock it in while you sleep. 2. Take naps after intense learning. Even a 20-minute nap can help reinforce what you studied. 3. Sleep at least 7-9 hours for full memory consolidation. 4. Follow a regular sleep schedule. Going to bed and waking up at the same time improves learning efficiency. How sleep boosts skill development. Ollie also explains that sleep doesn't just help with memorization, it helps with physical skill building too. Athletes, musicians, and even memory champions rely on quality sleep to perform at their best. For example, if you practice playing the piano in the morning, your performance improves overnight, even if you don't touch the piano again until the next day. Your brain continues refining the skill while you sleep, making movements smoother and more automatic. Why poor sleep hurts your brain. Ollie warns that lack of sleep does more than just make you tired. It actually shrinks parts of your brain, including the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory. This is why people who don't sleep enough struggle to focus, process information, and recall details. Fixing your sleep to improve learning. Ollie suggests a few simple fixes to improve sleep quality. Avoid screens, phones, TVs before bed. Blue light tricks your brain into thinking it's daytime, making it harder to sleep. Reduce caffeine in the afternoon. Even coffee from lunch can affect sleep quality. Create a nighttime routine. Reading, meditation, or journaling can help signal your brain that it's time to rest. Make your room cool and dark. Your brain sleeps better when it's slightly colder and free from light distractions. Key takeaways from Chapter 10. Sleep is a powerful learning tool. Your brain processes and strengthens memories while you rest. Both slow-wave sleep and REM sleep play critical roles in learning and skill development. Reviewing material before bed can help lock it into long-term memory. Taking short naps after learning boosts retention and recall. Lack of sleep shrinks memory processing areas of the brain, making learning harder. Fixing your sleep schedule and reducing distractions can dramatically improve your ability to learn faster. Ollie closes the chapter with this important reminder. If you're serious about learning fast, make sleep your secret weapon. The more you rest, the more your brain works for you. Chapter 11. Using music and sound to boost learning. Ever noticed how a certain song can instantly bring back memories from years ago? That's because music has a powerful effect on the brain. It triggers emotions, strengthens memory, and even helps with focus. In Chapter 11, Tansel Ollie explains how you can use music and sound to learn faster and retain information more effectively. How music affects the brain. Ollie starts by breaking down why music is such a powerful learning tool. Unlike spoken words, music activates both sides of the brain, the logical left side and the creative right side, making information more memorable. This is why people can remember song lyrics effortlessly, even after years of not hearing them. He shares studies showing that listening to the right type of music can improve concentration, reduce stress and anxiety, enhance creativity, strengthen memory recall. What kind of music works best? Ollie explains that not all music is beneficial for learning. Lyrics can be distracting when reading or studying, so the best types of music for focus include 1. Classical music. Certain classical compositions, like those by Mozart and Bach, have been shown to boost brain function and concentration. 2. Instrumental soundtracks. Movie scores, video game music, and lo-fi beats create an immersive background without distracting lyrics. 3. Nature sounds. These sounds help block distractions and improve focus. 4. Binaural beats. Special frequencies that can enhance focus, memory, and relaxation when listened to with headphones. Ali suggests experimenting to find what works best for you. Some people focus better with background music, while others need complete silence. The power of association, linking music to learning. One of the most powerful techniques Ali introduces is using music as an anchor for memory. He explains that pairing a certain song with new information helps lock it into your brain. For example, if you're studying for an exam while listening to a specific playlist, playing that same music later can trigger recall of what you studied. This technique is often used by language learners who associate words or phrases with specific songs. Ali also shares how music can help with repetitive tasks. For instance, listening to upbeat music while practicing vocabulary, writing, or solving problems can keep you engaged and motivated. When to use music. While music can be a powerful tool, Ali warns that it's not always helpful. Good for memorization, repetitive tasks, brainstorming, creative thinking. Bad for reading comprehension, deep problem-solving, tasks that require high concentration. For situations that require complete focus, Ali suggests switching to white noise or silence instead. Key takeaways from Chapter 11. Music activates both sides of the brain, making learning easier. Classical, instrumental, and ambient sounds are best for focus. Pairing music with learning creates memory associations. Binaural beats can improve focus and retention. Avoid lyrics when reading or solving complex problems. Ali wraps up the chapter with this thought. Music is more than entertainment. It's a tool for focus, memory, and learning. Use it wisely, and it can transform the way you absorb information. Chapter 12. How to stay consistent and never stop learning. Starting something new is easy. Sticking with it is the hard part. How many times have you been excited to learn a new skill, only to lose motivation after a few weeks? In Chapter 12, Tansel Ali breaks down how to stay consistent with learning so you don't give up halfway. Why people struggle with consistency. Ali starts by explaining why most people quit. It's not because they're not smart enough, it's because they don't have a system in place. Learning requires momentum, and without the right strategies, it's easy to feel stuck or overwhelmed. He identifies 3 major reasons people give up. 1. No clear goal. If you don't have a specific goal, it's hard to measure progress, which leads to frustration. 2. Lack of routine. Learning randomly whenever you feel like it doesn't work. Without a schedule, progress is inconsistent. 3. Losing motivation. When results aren't instant, people get discouraged and stop trying. Ali emphasizes that learning is a long game, not an overnight success. You have to approach it like a marathon, not a sprint. How to build a learning habit. To make learning part of your daily life, Ali suggests using habit stacking, a technique where you attach a new habit to an existing one. For example, if you're learning a language, practice while drinking your morning coffee. If you're trying to improve your memory, do a quick exercise before brushing your teeth. If you're speed reading, practice before going to bed. By connecting learning to things you already do, it becomes automatic. You don't have to rely on motivation anymore. The 1% rule. Small progress adds up. Ali introduces the 1% rule, the idea that tiny improvements each day lead to massive results over time. If you improve just 1% daily, by the end of a year, you'll be 37 times better than when you started. This mindset shift helps remove pressure. Instead of trying to master something overnight, just focus on small, consistent progress. How to stay motivated in the long run. Ali shares 3 ways to keep motivation high. 1. Track your progress. Seeing improvement, even small wins, keeps you motivated. Use a journal or app to record what you've learned. 2. Reward yourself. Set milestones and celebrate when you reach them. It keeps the learning process exciting. 3. Make it fun. If learning feels like a chore, you won't stick with it. Use engaging techniques like mind maps, stories, or games. Accountability, the secret to staying committed. One of the most effective ways to stay consistent is having someone hold you accountable. Ollie suggests finding a learning partner. Someone with the same goal can keep you on track. Joining a community, whether online or in person, being part of a group makes learning more social and motivating. Publicly committing, announcing your goal on social media or to friends makes you more likely to follow through. Key takeaways from Chapter 12. People quit because they lack goals, routines, and motivation. Habit stacking makes learning automatic. The 1% rule. Small daily improvements lead to huge results. Tracking progress, rewarding yourself, and making learning fun keep motivation high. Accountability is key. Learning with others makes consistency easier. Ollie wraps up the chapter with this reminder. Consistency beats intensity. Learning for 15 minutes every day is better than cramming for 5 hours once a week. Show up daily, and success will follow. Chapter 13. The power of teaching what you learn. Want to know the fastest way to master something? Teach it. In Chapter 13, Tansel Ollie explains why teaching is the ultimate learning hack and how you can use it to strengthen your knowledge, even if you're not an expert yet. Why teaching makes you learn faster. Ollie starts by addressing a common mistake people make. They focus only on absorbing information instead of using it. He explains that learning isn't just about consuming knowledge. It's about processing, explaining, and applying it in a way that makes it stick. When you teach someone else, your brain organizes information more clearly, finds gaps in your understanding, reinforces key concepts by explaining them out loud. Ollie brings up the Feynman technique, which we covered earlier. It's a simple but powerful method. 1. Learn something new. 2. Try explaining it to someone in simple terms. 3. Identify where you get stuck. 4. Go back, learn more, and refine your explanation. This technique works because if you can't teach it simply, you don't fully understand it yet. Teaching doesn't mean you have to be an expert. A lot of people think, I can't teach, I'm not good enough yet. But Ollie shuts this down. He explains that you don't need to be an expert to teach, just one step ahead of someone else. For example, imagine you're learning a new language. You don't need to be fluent to teach a beginner their first 10 words. Teaching helps both of you because it forces you to solidify what you've learned. Ollie encourages readers to start sharing their knowledge immediately, even if it's just explaining something to a friend, writing about it online, or making a short video. The more you engage with the material, the faster you'll retain it. Different ways to teach what you learn. Ollie shares several ways to use teaching to improve learning. Teach a friend or family member. Even if they're not interested, just explaining something out loud helps. Write about it. Summarize what you learned in a blog, journal, or social media post. Record yourself. Pretend you're giving a lesson and talk through the key points. Join a community. Teaching and discussing in forums or study groups reinforces your knowledge. Ollie even suggests that if you don't have anyone to teach, just talk to yourself. Explaining concepts out loud forces your brain to process the information more deeply. Why teaching boosts confidence? Beyond just helping with retention, Ollie explains that teaching builds confidence. When you teach, you become more comfortable speaking about the topic. Feel a sense of mastery and progress. Get real-world experience applying what you know. Many people wait until they feel ready to share their knowledge, but Ollie says the best time to start is now. Even if you're only 10% ahead of someone else, you still have something valuable to share. Key takeaways from Chapter 13. Teaching helps you organize and reinforce knowledge. You don't need to be an expert to teach, just a little ahead of someone else. Explaining things out loud highlights gaps in your understanding. Writing, recording, or discussing what you learn makes it stick. Teaching boosts confidence and makes learning feel more rewarding. Ollie wraps up with this final thought. The best learners are also teachers. If you want to master something, don't just study it, share it. Chapter 14. The Mindset of a Lifelong Learner. Most people stop learning once they finish school. But the smartest and most successful people in the world never stop. They keep learning every day. In Chapter 14, Tansel Ollie dives into how to develop the mindset of a lifelong learner so that learning becomes a natural and permanent part of your life. Why most people stop learning. Ollie starts by breaking down why people stop actively learning after a certain point. 1. They associate learning with school. Many people think learning is something forced upon them in a classroom, rather than something they can enjoy. 2. They get comfortable. Once they have a job or feel settled, they stop pushing themselves to grow. 3. They fear looking stupid. People avoid learning new things because they don't want to struggle or make mistakes. Ollie argues that this mindset is what separates successful people from everyone else. The best in any field, whether business, sports, or the arts, never stop learning. They constantly seek new knowledge, new skills, and new challenges. How to think like a lifelong learner. To develop a lifelong learning mindset, Ollie shares these key principles. 1. Stay curious. The best learners ask questions and explore topics just for the sake of learning. They don't wait for someone to teach them. They go out and find answers. 2. Embrace mistakes. Many people avoid learning because they're afraid of failure. But Ollie explains that mistakes are the best teachers. Every mistake is a step toward improvement. 3. Challenge yourself constantly. If you're always doing what's easy, you're not growing. Seek challenges that push your limits. 4. Surround yourself with smart people. Being around others who love learning will keep you motivated and expose you to new ideas. Making learning part of your daily life. Ollie stresses that lifelong learning doesn't have to be formal. You don't need to take classes or read textbooks all day. Instead, you can build small learning habits into your routine. Read for 15, 30 minutes a day. Books, articles, research, anything that expands your knowledge. Listen to podcasts or audiobooks. Turn dead time into learning time. Watch educational videos. Platforms like YouTube or online courses offer endless learning opportunities. Try new skills regularly. Whether it's a new language, instrument, or sport, keep challenging yourself. Ollie also suggests keeping a learning journal to track what you've learned. Writing down one thing you learn each day helps reinforce it and keeps you engaged in lifelong learning. Key takeaways from Chapter 14. Learning doesn't stop after school. The best people keep learning for life. Stay curious, embrace mistakes, and constantly challenge yourself. Surround yourself with learners to stay motivated. Make small learning habits part of your daily routine. Track your learning progress to stay engaged. Ollie wraps up with this thought. The world belongs to those who never stop learning. Make growth a lifelong habit, and there will be no limits to what you can achieve. Chapter 15. Applying what you learn, turning knowledge into action. Learning is great, but if you never use what you learn, what's the point? In the final chapter, Tansel Ollie focuses on the most important step, applying knowledge in real life. The knowledge-action gap. Ollie explains that most people fall into the trap of passive learning. They read books, watch videos, and take courses, but never actually apply what they learn. This creates the illusion of progress without real results. For example, someone might read 10 books on productivity, but never change their habits. Or they might watch tutorials on a skill, but never practice it themselves. The key, Ali says, is turning learning into action. How to apply what you learn. Ali shares a simple but effective framework to make sure learning turns into results. 1. Learn, absorb the knowledge. Read a book, take a course, or watch a video. 2. Do apply it immediately. If you're learning a new language, start speaking it. If you're learning memory techniques, test them on something real. 3. Teach, share it with others. Teaching reinforces learning and helps you retain the knowledge better. He also suggests setting implementation goals. Instead of saying, I'll learn coding, set a goal like, I'll build a simple website in 1 week. Instead of saying, I'll improve my memory, say, I'll memorize 20 new words today. Ali reminds us that knowledge alone doesn't change your life, action does. The faster you apply what you learn, the faster you grow. Key takeaways from Chapter 15. Don't just consume knowledge, use it. The best way to retain information is to apply it immediately. Use the Learn, Do, Teach method to solidify learning. Set action-based goals, not just learning goals. Ali ends the chapter with a powerful message. A book can give you knowledge, but only action can give you results. Learn, apply, and grow starting now. And that's a wrap on How to Learn Anything in 48 Hours by Tansel Ali. This book isn't just about learning faster, it's about learning smarter. We've covered everything from memory techniques and mind maps to focus, motivation, and lifelong learning. But remember, learning only works if you apply it. If you found this summary valuable, I highly recommend reading the full book. Ali goes even deeper with examples and exercises that can truly transform the way you learn. What's the next skill you're going to master? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and make every hour count.